All right. Good evening. Allow me to introduce my channel. Welcome aboard. If you like the content, I'm happy. If you don't, that's okay too. Obviously, I'll say this again. I'm not trying to sit there and, become some big famous, YouTuber just to, do something different instead of, working the grind or anything. You know, would it be nice if my channel blows up? Yeah, I'll take it. I ain't arguing. I ain't gonna argue with that. But am I just gonna sit here and just try to upload and upload just to try to get views? No. I mean the only reason I've been on kind of a binge, as I mentioned recently, is my job status. Which by the way, I have an interview tomorrow. Wish me luck. Wish me luck. Or tell me to crash and burn, whatever the term is nowadays. But I'm just like I said, I'm just a random guy who had life throw him a curveball, and so I got a lot of shit that I got to deal with. And obviously, unlike most channels, or I would probably say every other fucking channel on YouTube right now, um, mine's pretty random. Mine's all over the place. Um, obviously, the bulk of my playlists are, all these, videos where I just usually sit in this room and talk. Sometimes to go to a nearby park and, doing there just to kind of, get away from the computer, get away from sending out applications for a little while, and just get away from people. And then talk to you guys on YouTube. And again, like I said, I always like subscriptions. I always like when people watch my shit. I'd rather see people. I want to see people subscribe and watch my videos because they like them and get something out of them. Not because I'm just sitting here begging, like and subscribe, you know what to do, Because, again, is everybody going to like my content? No. I'm sure the majority of people who see my videos, they're probably like, who the fuck is this jackass? Who the fuck is this guy, And, I generally like to remain anonymous for the most part. I mean, I know you've seen what I look like. But I'd like to think, my favorite videos to actually post are my car videos. My daily video, or my daily driver video rather, the Hyundai Santa Cruz, and then especially the Geo Tracker. Um, but I do want to make a point. I noticed, a lot of people who comment, they're not really YouTubers in it. They're not really YouTubers or whatever, because they don't have any content. Then I've seen channels that have like one maybe two videos, and they just abandon YouTube. Much like those two fleeing the U.S. to avoid student loan debt videos. What, two videos, and then that's it. You never hear from them ever again. And there may be other videos where somebody just uploaded one video of something funny, and then that's it. Could they eventually become big YouTubers? Maybe. Yeah, I know one of the people who subbed me had, I think he's got way less videos, but obviously he's got enough subscribers to where he actually, making some kind of a living off of it. Because, again, people like that person's content. And, again, my main purpose is to find steady work again. You know, not to sit here and stare at the computer all the time and, you know, post videos on YouTube. I know before my current situation, I mean, I look at my own analytics. I'm like, I really didn't post a whole lot, you know, because, you know, one, I was busy, and it'd be like one video here, one video there, you know, maybe a couple at night, and then that's it. But you know, I like to think, you know, that, you know, once I find full-time work, my content uploading's gonna drop, and then whoever watches it watches it. If they don't, they don't. And then, you know, not much I can do there. You know, I could sit here and fucking, you know, do live streams and all that, pointless live stream or whatever, where I could fucking do clickbait videos. I hope none of mine ended up being like that, but you get my point. You know, I could, yeah, I could do videos just to get people, and I'm like, no, that just doesn't feel right. You know, same thing as I mentioned in my other videos about, you know, trying to, you know, busk, you know. I still have my guitar and a couple other instruments, you know. I just don't feel right doing that. That was supposed to be a hobby. You know, I was supposed to be just a hobby. If it made me some money, you know, great. And, you know, while I did part ways with most of my stuff, you know, I know one way to declutter, right? I haven't touched it in a few years. So somebody else will have fun with it. You know, so that's that. And, you know, again, over the years of, you know, jamming on the streets, you know, the gear that I purchased, you know, essentially paid for itself. You know, that's how I look at it. I try to look at the positive side of that. I mean, I know I got beat up over, you know, what the pawn shops gave me, but I still look at the positive of it. They paid for themselves over the years. And, you know, again, you know, this to me is a hobby. You know, if I was trying to do this, you know, to get money, it would be called work. I may restructure my channel, you know, and I do look to see, you know, what videos either get views or reactions or whatever, and instead of just, you know, shotgunning, you know, videos, you know, just to try to get views, you know. That's just not my thing. You know, I would rather people like and subscribe because you actually like the content. You know, not because I'm just sitting here begging for it. Anyhow, that's my last video for the night. I'll talk to you.